Aloha and welcome, my friends. Welcome to the Burnout Cure for Teachers broadcast. This is the show that turns teacher burnouts into brilliance. I'm your host, Kaya Mason. I'm an educator, best-selling author, and advocate for real change in the education system. If you are a teacher, a school leader, or policy holder, this is your space to learn, heal, and build solutions. Today's episode focuses on the opportunity to speak, to write, and to rise as a teacher. If you've ever thought, who would ever really read my story? This episode will absolutely have you answering in confidence everyone who needs it. Let's dive in. Aloha, Lesley. How are you, my friend? It is so good to see you, beautiful.
My goodness, same here. And I love it whenever you say aloha, right? It just takes me to the island there with you. So I'm grateful to be here. Looking forward to this incredible conversation that we're going to have because as you know,
Oh,
I believe that everyone's story is deserving of being told and heard. So I am grateful to be here.
I am so grateful that you are grateful. Let me say, you guys, I've got Lesley George from Mosaic Inc. in my presence today. I am so honored. Lesley is going to support us in this conversation today. She is an editor, a best selling. How many bestsellers do you have? I'm going to let you share that because you have the power to break down for us that our story matters. And there's so much that we can do with our story. So, which brings us and Lesley to our episode today. Lesley, if you don't mind, share a little bit about yourself, and we can get started with a very good question that's going to open us up for our conversation today.
Absolutely. Thank you for allowing me to do that. So, Leslie George, I am the CEO founder of Mosaic Inc. Mosaic Publishing is a division of that, and simply what we do at Mosaic is we help get your voice out. You know, with dealing with I've done over 50 best-selling authors. Me myself, yeah. And actually, my goal next year is to do 50 in a year. That's a whole nother story. But
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
so for myself, I think I'm a four-time best-selling international author. And you know, my journey, in terms of how my journey started, is I kept on waffling back and forth that I wanted to write this book for like 20 years and just could not get it going. So when it comes to first time authors and understanding how that feels and all the emotions that go along with it, truly understand. So I'm just here. I consider myself a vessel. My mission is to help you get your story out, because here's the thing, even if one person reads your story, that one person, you just never know what the ripple effect will be for that one person, right? So one person can touch millions. And the thing is that we have to get out of our head and move into what I call like a God purpose and share your story from that angle. So I know that in our heads, oh, who's going to read our story? Why? But here's the thing. He didn't put you through whatever that test is for you not to share that testimony. So that's simply what I do, and absolutely love what I do.
That's so amazing. 50 best sellers.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow, that's
Yes, ma'am.
phenomenal.
Yes,
That
ma'am.
is phenomenal. If you guys hadn't picked up, Lesley George is the editor who has supported me in my very first book, 30 Day Teacher. The experience that I had in writing the book was phenomenal. It was therapeutic. It was a challenge. It was so many layers of revelation tied into that process, and I felt at the end, or even going through that process, I felt weight being removed. I felt a healing upon me. And that type of feeling allowed me to experience coming out of burnout, reversing burnout. And our conversations today will allow you as the listener to adopt some of the habits that Lesley has seen, some of the habits that I've experienced and picked up as a writer, for the simple fact to prevent burnout. Okay. And that's why we're here. We want you as an educator or as a school administrator or a policymaker in the educational industry to not only experience how to prevent burnout, but being able to share right practices to others so they too can prevent, recognize, and even eliminate burnout. So this is a powerful tool, a very powerful tool. Writing is a powerful tool. And in this interview with my editor, we're going to give you a golden opportunity to see how you can showcase writing as a tool to prevent burnout. Now, Lesley, I want to ask you a few questions, if you don't mind, sis. Now, when writing a book, I realized that it gave me permission to be honest with myself. First of all, I knew I had to be, because you can't write anything that's just not true. That's, what is that, fictional or nonfiction?
That yeah, and well, yeah, I guess it is fictional because it's not true, but
Yeah. Right, right. So, my question to you: what did you notice about me, emotionally or mentally, as I move through this writing process? In what ways can we use writing as an act of a safe container for burnout relief and emotional clarity?
great question. So, as an educator, I knew that working with you, the writing, the actual part of writing, would not be an issue because as educators, that's something that you guys do all the time, right? So I knew going into this project with you that that writing part would be easy. But the other part, as I said, as me being a new author, I'm always coming from that experience of a new author whenever I'm dealing with brand new authors. So I knew that although you know the mechanics of writing, the mentality of writing, and now transforming what you have in your head to paper for other people to read it, I knew that that would be a process. But what I will say about you, and this is probably for most educators, because you understand deadlines and because you understand we need to get this done, and also the mechanics of writing, I feel that educators have a great foundation for that because with you, that's what I experience. What I experience with you is that here's the other part. As you're going through this process with someone, the other person has to be very honest with some of the things that they're going through, some of the things that they're feeling. And that is the other thing that I experience with you. And what I appreciate about it is because I have to get out of my own head by and remind myself we need to go back to the beginning. And I might think, what you're going through, I know you're going to get over, but I have to remember this is your first time. So what my experience with you going
Yeah,
in, I know 50% of
yeah.
50% of it you already got that. We would just have to work through the mental part of it. And the other thing that I would say with you is that you never questioned if what you were writing was valid, and that also
Mm-hmm.
is part of the mental challenge as well, right? So a lot of
Yeah.
times people, they're thinking that, oh my goodness, like I might start writing something, I'm gonna change my mind, I'm gonna change my mind 3 or 4 different times. But with
Mm-hmm.
you were pretty smooth with the process. And with every author that I work with, and especially with you, it reminded me of how important deadlines are and how important my part of the process is to keep you to that deadline, right? Because it's a partnership. So you're providing the words, you're providing the story, you're providing all of that. But my part, my responsibility in it is to hold you to those deadlines so that we can get it out. And as you know, once you release that manuscript to me, it's like, whew, you're kind of done, right? Because now
Yeah.
you've released this thing, and that's like the hardest hump to get us to release this thing. So my experience with you was absolutely incredible. I knew going into it, and plus we had built a relationship prior to that already, so I kind of knew your style. So it was absolutely incredible working with you, and the
Oh,
the honesty the honesty is what I appreciate.
oh wow. Thank you. Thank you. I can remember, just going through my own storm through that time. I did question validity of what I was writing, but that was an inner conversation because I knew I had a deadline. I knew I had a message for others, and I wanted to get it out. It was like it was burning, a burning hot white desire inside, that really needed to get out. And so going through that process, I wanted to make it as smoothly as possible for you. Like, let me make sure I get all of this so that we wouldn't have to go back and forth. I'm that A+ student that wants to get the A+ the first time around. So, all of that part of me really pushed to the forefront so that I can get through that process. Now, for those of us who are listening, what if I could tell you, what if I told you that you could edit your life the way that you could edit a book, one red pen moment at a time? Editing our lives. Ooh, I'm getting a slightly emotional here.
Yeah,
Editing
that's
our
good.
lives is more or less how people want to live. We want to tell our own story. We want to tell people who we are. We want to live in that the storyline, the fairy tale or whatever the dream state of what we expect life to reward us with. um, Oftentimes our pitfalls or our challenges, disrupt the dream or that inception that we have about our stories, about our lives. But really, it's important that we embrace those challenges because the challenges really make our life. Um, if people are able to embrace our pitfalls and our challenges and be easily, I guess that's the word, easy to share, it could ultimately save others. You know,
Hmm.
um,
Absolutely.
Sharing challenges in our lives, embracing those challenges, deaths or foreclosures or, breakups, divorces, those things that, car wrecks, those things that we fear or don't want to happen or try to erase or eliminate or, even remember um, from our mindset. Those stories are the stories that make up our lives. And if we're able to embrace them
Absolutely.
and then share them, then we've got the opportunity or we're creating a platform to save and serve others. So, what if I told you, listener, that you have an opportunity to save someone else just by sharing your life story? Would you share your story? Would you be comfortable
Mm-hmm.
enough to share your story? So, Lesley, I say that because I want to ask you how many stories, and it could be all of them or none of them, or even a percentage, how many stories have you edited that have had challenges and pitfalls in them.
So tell me, when you say challenges and pitfalls, you mean in terms of the writing? That's what you
No, I
mean in
mean in
terms of.
terms of the living. If someone is
Oh,
writing
oh,
about their life story,
oh,
how
oh,
many negative things or challenges that they've had to face that you've
oh,
edited in a story. Does that make sense
oh my
now?
God. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Oh gosh. I,
Yes.
I say this all the time. I am so grateful to be a part of these stories. I have, oh my God, we did a book, came out in January, and it was a co author book on divorce. You had five women in there talking about
Mm.
their experience when it comes to divorce. So, in terms of stories, I'm now working with a doctor, and her story is about, she's been a doctor 30 years. And
Mhm.
from her perspective, and with the doctors, there's a lot of research. She's talking about the medical field, and like this book is like just mind blowing, right? And what does that come from? That comes from 30 years of practice of seeing how the insurance company works, how everything works, that we don't get a chance to see that, right?
Mhm.
Last
Mhm.
year published a book, a lady 30 years, 35 years working with the SBA, and the name of that book is How to Do Business with the Federal Government. Like, gems are in that. So in every book that I've been a part of, it has been, regardless of the name, whether working with the federal government, something about a doctor, no matter divorce, no matter what it is, it's always coming from a part of someone that wants to help.
Mm.
Especially with the book, when that book drops, like I that book is just, that's going to be like a book that needs to be in a library. Because she's also a black doctor, so she's coming from that place. She's coming
Mhm.
from teaching us things
Mhm.
that we don't know, we don't understand. But it
Mm.
comes from a place from her, from, if you want to say trauma, if you want to say hurt or whatever. And that's where every story comes from. And as you stated before, you don't want to write on something that's not true, unless it's a Harry Potter or something like that, right? You're writing
Right.
those stories. But the women, the stories that I've dealt with, these are things that they have experienced, these are things that they've gone through, and they've been in these things 20, 25 years, 30 years. So as you said, what if your story, your experience in whatever field could save someone's life? Literally, could save someone's life. And that's why I said that, look at it as a God mission. I know that because of society and all the noise that we hear, we may not want to put ourselves out there because, who's going to say this, and maybe my family is going to say this, or whatever it is. But if you can really and truly get past that and realize that this is like part of your assignment for someone else. And as I say, just for one person, because you don't know how much that one person can affect, and this thing can roll out to so many other people. And Justin, this is not part of an educator, but yeah, I guess it is an education process. But when I talk about one person, recently, anybody that knows that song, Boots on the Ground, with the fans and all of that, that was one person that wrote
Yeah.
that
Oh, yeah.
song. One person wrote that song. Somebody else did the choreography. That song has hit records. They are doing that in Japan. They are doing that all over the world. And here's what he said. He did not like that song. He didn't like that song. but he moved forward in that. So that is to give you an idea that, okay, maybe I don't really want to write this book, but I just don't know how this is going to affect someone else. What would have happened
Mhm.
if he did not move forward in that song? What will happen if that burning desire that you have with that book, with that story, you
Mhm.
don't want to move forward? That's all I got to say about that.
Wow.
I hope I answered your question.
Absolutely. So you're saying that writing is transformational. It can transform
Absolutely.
people and places and events and lives. Is
Absolutely.
transformational. How dare we have a story that we
Yes.
don't share? How dare we have a story that we don't share for someone else's life, right? Wow. I love that. I love that. I love
Yeah.
that, Leslie,
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
is our
Yeah.
responsibility to be storytellers. And that comes from,
It is.
it comes from our heritage, our ancestral, tribal rituals, storytelling. It's your responsibility to tell a story, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It is. It is. It is your responsibility. And as
Yeah.
you said, in terms of transformative, you, teachers, educators, administrators. There's so many things that you all do on an everyday basis. But here's how I want to frame something. I want to frame something from, you have lessons plans to do. There's different deadline. I don't know what are all the deadlines that you guys have, but there's different things that is set up for you to do, and you meet that head on. Oh my goodness, the teachers that don't have enough supplies for the children, and getting it done and going in their own pocket. So you're used to producing, you're used to doing that. And what I'm going to add is that can be a part of the burnout. Why? Because you have a purpose on your life, that you are when I say educator, it is an educator in terms of what you do as a profession, but don't let it stop there. You being an educator or being in the field, it's not just a profession. Because I can guarantee you, if we have any
Right.
educators that are on the line that was their profession, and they have retired, they are still educating, because that is something that is a part of you. You don't go into this just cuz. All right. You don't go into this to make millions of dollars. You go into this because it is a mandate, and this is a purpose that you are moving in. So let's flip that purpose. Let's flip this. And
Okay.
because you are used to doing the lesson plans and doing the whatever, let's just flip that. And instead of being reactive, you look at writing or bringing out your story as being more proactive, right? And so flip it from doing what they expect you to do, and now doing parts of things that you want to do for yourself. And I think that,
I love
I'm not an educator, as you all know, but that could also lead to burnout, because you have this constant tugging with yourself as to my purpose, as to the things that I'm doing, but there's also additional things that you want to do for yourself. And so you have this constant tug of war as to, oh my goodness, like if I do such and such, this might affect the children in my class, or I know that if I want to retire this year, I know that they don't have any good teachers that wants to take on that second grade class or that third grade class, whatever it is. Because like I said, it's, so instead of being reactive, look at writing your story, using this as a transformative, powerful tool, and let's maybe look at it being a little bit more reactive, proactive.
I
I'm
love
sorry.
that.
I hope that
I
helps.
proactive.
Thank you.
Yes, yes, I love that. Um, it's in Hawaii we use the term kuleana. It's our kuleana responsibility to tell the story, um, and it actually lightens the load for the listener or the next teacher up. And it's so important that an educator sees about him or herself. First of all,
Yes.
we're
Yes.
editing everyone else's stories all day, all the time. We're
Exactly.
editing someone else's life, always. um, but we've got to turn the mirror on ourselves and edit who we are on a daily
Yeah.
basis, as a part of a habitual ritual. So that we can be in that place fully to continue to tell our story, to continue to
Absolutely.
edit other people's lives. And that's one source to burnout.
Mm,
The neglect that educators have for self care, self maintenance, self evaluation, self love, self admiration, all of those things, the lack of can lead into burnout. So, Stanford did a study on journaling and writing.
mm,
I was able to read an article, and this came out in 2024. It reads that journaling and self expression reduces the stress hormone cortisol by 37%. Writing and journaling can reduce the stress related hormone cortisol by 37%. Now, if I can pick up my notebook and write every day to reduce cortisol, and I do know, being a biologist, I also know that cortisol, it can sit around our abdominal region and begin to insulate our muscles. It can totally insulate what our and be collected in our abdominal area, so that's belly fat. So if I've got the
mhm.
opportunity to reduce the amount of belly fat that I have by grabbing my pen and notebook, baby, I will journal and I will write, because it's allowing you to release. And that's what burnout is, in this overworked, overwhelmed, um, expansion on not only stress but so many other things. So if we know that journaling and writing can help us to heal, why is it that many of us are not journaling and or writing? What is it that educators find that separates them from the opportunity to write? Asking this question because I've done the research to find out. Many educators feel like they just don't have the time.
Mhm.
They do not dedicate the time to sit down and write and journal. Lesley, tell me this. What can you offer? What strategy would you offer to a teacher, an educator who finds that, or who believes that they don't have enough time to sit down and write or journal? When in fact, we know that journaling will decrease the amount of cortisol and belly fat that we accumulate by 37%. What are some strategies that you would like to offer someone who feels like they just don't have the time to write?
So I want to just offer this. Um, I'm gonna say 5 minutes, and 5 minutes may seem simple, but let me get into this just a little bit more. As I said
Okay.
earlier, y'all are writing all the time. Y'all are writing plans. You're doing this. You are writing all the time. But let's get back to that self care. Let's get back to that self maintenance. If you look at the writing that you can do for yourself, and
That's
not
it.
necessarily
Yes.
necessarily part of the writing for schoolwork or for lesson plans or for somebody else. Let's look at that writing for yourself. And then here's the other part, right? In terms of writing, and I'll say this to new authors as well, because that's usually the first thing most people say, well, I can't write, I don't have time to write. And I say, you are writing all day long. In regular folk, you texting, you doing emails. Isn't that writing? But see, we
You're
put a
right. You're
different weight on and we segment it and categorize it, it's still writing. And so let's get back to that
yeah.
journaling that you mentioned. Start with 5 minutes. Just start with 5 minutes a day. If you are
Okay.
if you drink coffee, you're a coffee person. When you take that coffee break or that coffee time, if it's 2 minutes, how about just write that out, even for those 2 minutes, because we need to start somewhere. The other thing you could maybe do is maybe do voice notes to yourself. So if you're in the
Mm,
car and maybe you can pull out your phone and while you're commuting, maybe you can pull out and do a voice note to yourself. And then later on, you can transpose that. Voice notes, I absolutely love. And I really started doing that during COVID. And the reason why, for me, I like collecting voice notes is because you can during COVID, we were all in a place that we didn't know what was going to happen. And so I wanted to have a way where I could hear myself or who was going to hear me and understand my feelings, understand where I was, the breathing, all of that. I wanted all of that to be collected and then move forward. I didn't know God was going to have me write a book on that. So then I ended up writing a book on it. But like I said, yeah, I didn't know that was part of the plan. But simple, right? So pull out that phone, do some recording, take a minute or two, and just write out something. How about even the notepad in your phone? However you need to get it done, however you need to get it done. And here's what I say. We're going to start in baby steps. So let's say we do it for a week. Let's do it for a week. And after you do it for a week and you've conquered that, oh wow. Now what that gives you is that confidence to now move forward to, okay, we could do 2 weeks. And then maybe that will build up to a month. Because here's the thing for us, for all of us, if we don't feel we're confident in something, we're not going to do it, right? Because one, we don't want to fail. And especially for educators, administrators, and so forth, right? You guys are highly emotional people, right? So you do not want to do anything to set yourself up for failure. But we're
right.
just going to take 5 minutes. We're going to do it. We're going to do it for a week. You've conquered that, and I know you can, because like I said, let's go back to it. Y'all write every day. So I hope that somebody can
Yeah.
take those tips and just challenge yourself to start a week, just a week, nothing more. Don't stress yourself out, and go forward. And here's the thing: writing has nothing to do with publishing a book. So do not put additional stress
Mm,
on yourself to say, well, I don't have time to write because I don't know how to publish, right? Because that's where I was. I did not know the first thing of what to do to get a book published. Now, I knew I could talk about it. I talked about it for 20 years, but I did not know so because I didn't know the last part, it was hard for me to get started. So take
uh,
the publishing out and let's just focus on the habit of writing, the habit of getting those thoughts out and writing. Also, look at it as that self care, that self maintenance that you need. So
yeah.
that's what I would say.
I love that. I love that. Using writing as it could be a part of our morning routine. It could be a part of a healing process therapy. It could just be getting thoughts out, but not putting that added stress on yourselves to have that writing published. Um, I call it, I used to have a Wednesday activity with my community that we called brain dump, and every
Mm.
Wednesday I direct everyone to grab a
Everyone to
notebook
grab a
and for
notebook.
5 minutes, just write everything out that comes in your head. It doesn't matter. You don't have to bullet point it. It's not in paragraph format, not even full sentences. Whatever thoughts came up, just write it down. Just write it down. And it allows us that time to clear our minds, to see our thoughts really out on paper, and to strategize those thoughts that are serving us and those that are not. Categorize them, do away with those thoughts that no longer serve us, and focus on those that do. And having that brain dump activity once a week allows for personal development to grow. It allows for so much more to flourish in that brain of ours, so I totally appreciate what you're saying about utilizing writing as a form of therapy, as a form of healing, and not to worry about it being published or edited. It's just for that moment in time, and not to add the extra stress on us at the end for that end game. Unless that's what you want to do, then they should come see you, and you can guide them through the
Right,
process and
right.
get to that point. Right, right.
Right, right.
Right. I love that. I love that. So you've worked with authors from many walks of life, and having 50 bestsellers, and I can't wait to hear more about your 50 in a year. That's going to be phenomenal. I want to be a part of it. Please
Yes,
include
ma'am.
me on that list, baby, because I love monumental, achievements. So, knowing that, what's unique about teachers, as storytellers? What would you say that's unique about a teacher being a storyteller? What message would you give a teacher listening right now who's afraid to write, but really want to write to publish? What would you say to someone who's afraid to write, who wants to write as and publish, and even make something out of it, beyond it being published? What's expected to look forward to for writing in a publishing mode? If you understand my question, I know it's like 10 questions in one.
Oh, no, 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 no. I got it. Here's the thing. You educators are in a specific space that you're among stories every day. Like the stories that you guys could come up with is absolutely amazing. And so from your
Yes.
I know you got some stories, right? And so,
Yeah.
from your right. So from an educators, administrator, I mean the stories that y'all are around. But here's what I feel is, as more educators in this space become more comfortable publishing their work. And when I say publish the work, I'm not talking about, like, I think when you're doing your PhD, you got to publish these things. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about those type of publishing. Um,
Hmm.
as educators, when you get more comfortable in the space of writing and then publishing your book, and getting to where you want to get to, and having book signings and having book launches and just that energy around that, I think that now that space, you will start to appreciate that space a little bit more. And I feel that other people may even appreciate educators even more, because in certain fields we box people in certain areas. And for teachers, a lot of people may have whatever opinions that they have as teachers, and feel that they're just one dimensional, where we're all multidimensional. And so the I feel that as more and more teachers feel comfortable sharing whatever the story is, that can, one, humanize them, right? Because, one of the things with teachers, I mean, I've been around even my kids, and the teacher has been retired, but because they were the principal of the elementary school, you have this certain reverence for them, right? Which is, nothing is wrong with
Right.
that. But what I'm saying is that it doesn't humanize them. And I feel that you still want to, how do I say this? We all want to be accepted, and I don't care who you are. We all want to be accepted. So in terms of
Mm-hmm.
educators, administrators, and you have all these multitude of children seeing you at a certain level, but they don't, but they forget the human factor. And so imagine a school district that the superintendent of schools, the assistant attendant of schools, and a few principals in that district publish a book. What will that do for that community? How could that
Ooh.
transform that community? How could people see that these are human beings? And they're
Mm-hmm.
just not
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Principal that, Mr. Principal that. They're just not those things. And so for me, that is some things that I look at. I always look at, because we're all human beings, how do we humanize one another? How do we see those parts of us? These
Mm-hmm.
administrators, teachers, educators, they have families. They have struggles just like everybody else. None of us are perfect, but you guys get put into this box, if that makes sense.
Right. 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 It does. Mm. You know, during my writing process, I felt more human. you know, when you start writing for publishing, you know that uh, you will be humanized. People will see, people will hear, people will speculate, and they will fill in blanks. They will see you, and that's just like writing notes and you passing that note to a friend, but the teacher interjects and then the teacher reads the note. So the teacher now knows what's on your mind, what you're thinking, you know what I'm saying? So writing is absolutely that for the sake of publishing. And to humanize yourself in a writing format, it's actually, it's like a reward or an award, because now you are getting past this
Mhm.
uncomfortable space. Okay, that's where growth begins. You
Yes.
are putting yourself to the side to tell your story for the sake of someone else, and serving them. So the publishing is just kind of a crown to place on your head for doing a job well done, for telling your story, being open and vulnerable, humanized. If we don't publish, do we still
Absolutely.
feel the same rewards?
I don't think so.
You were
I
saying,
don't I don't think so. I don't
uh,
think that. Yeah, as you said, if you don't publish, do you still feel the same rewards? I don't think so, because as you said, when you were going through the process, you felt more human, right? You felt, and not only more human for others. How about even you connecting to yourself? You connecting to
yes,
yourself in terms
yes,
of whatever the thoughts that you've had, or whatever the subject is, you're now getting it from here and you're putting it on paper. Writing is so
yeah,
therapeutic. And one of the other things that I tell new authors is, you're going to go through a roller coaster of emotions. I am not here to sugarcoat that part. You're going to go through emotions, and especially if you're writing a story of trauma from a place of trauma. You're
Mm,
gonna you're gonna want to be done. And for some people, they've buried whatever these things are, and only when they're writing it comes up. Why do I say this? Because for me, that happened for me. For me,
yeah.
part of my first book is I wrote on um, colorism, and I wrote on weight bullying, and I did not realize that what I
Yeah.
wrote on had been buried for like 20 years. And so you're going to go through these emotions, and these different things that you didn't even know was a part of you, but it's healing. So imagine
Mhm.
you going through
Yeah.
that. What is that going to do for the other person? So the human
Right.
connection is for you to connect to yourself, and for now for other people to see you in a more human, and not on this pedestal type of way, right? And don't get me wrong, you may have
Mhm.
some people that want to be on a pedestal. That's fine. But if you are someone that you're looking to connect to yourself and looking to connect to others, and you're looking for a way, how do I humanize? How do I appear that, on a Sunday coming from church, all I want to do is take a nap? How do I communicate that, right? So yeah.
Right, right, right. I love that. I love that. So, what I'm getting is that writing and editing is not about erasing our flaws, but it's more or less about finding clarity within ourselves.
Absolutely. 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 It is clarity for yourself, transformation, the weight that you
Mhm.
feel after you have achieved this, the confidence, the confidence after you have written whatever the story is. You put that thing out,
Yeah,
and you get your first sale.
yeah,
The confidence that that thing gives you, wow. Like that is something that
yeah,
no one can give you that feeling. And because you've done
yeah.
this, you've done it, right? And it's coming from a place, like most of the authors that I've dealt with, they didn't just wake up yesterday and said they want to write. They've been wanting to write. My oldest author
Yeah.
was 68, and she wanted to be an author since she was 13. Last year, I published a book. I think she just turned 65, and she wanted to write her story since she was 12. After her book got published, she became number one. She had these sales. The text that I got from her, and we're getting ready to work on another book for her as well. The text that I got from her. So my point is, the level of confidence, that all that is part of the transformation, the clarity, the
Yes.
confidence, the connection
Yes.
that you're making. All of that
Yes.
is
Come
part of
on. Come
that.
on.
The three
I
C's,
love
the three C's,
it.
all of that is part of that transformation. And there, I don't feel that there is anything that can do it as much as you being an author and sharing your story. And let me just take this a step further. Sharing your story is not just in the book. Sharing your story now, you can go on stages now talking about your book. So the book
Mhm.
is just your foundation, right? Because you've gained this confidence of putting it in a book. Now you're going to move to, now you're going to be speaking about this thing. That's just going to put you on a whole nother level, right? Because the confidence that you've
Mm.
gained from writing the book, imagine when you step on that stage and you're talking to people about this thing, and the transformation
Come
that you're
on.
offering is absolutely,
Yes.
incredible. Absolutely incredible. Like that is
Yes.
something that is
I,
is No one, no one can do that for you, because guess what? You're owning your story. You have taken the power back. And I think that's what I wanted to talk about earlier when I talked about um, educators not being reactive. You own
Mm-hmm,
your
mm-hmm.
story, and you are the one that's responsible for telling it the way that it should be told. Now, you can't get upset that Sarah, Susie, John, Michael, whatever, gonna tell your story the way they see it. Because if you've never put it out there, you've never corrected them. But once you have put whatever it is
Mm-hmm.
that's out there, that kills all that noise. You are in the power seat. You are in control of whatever the narrative is. So control your narrative, control your story, be the one to put it out there. And don't get me wrong, I know that it is not easy. It took me 20 years. So I know that it is not easy. But I promise you, once you make the decision that you're going to move forward, it's all gonna line up. And as the phrase goes, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So the most important thing is to make that decision that I am going to own my story, tell my story in the way that only I can tell your story. Because guess what? You are the only actor in this whole scenario that matters. Everybody else, they just playing supporting roles. You're the actor. And so for you, as you're the one that needs to control the narrative. So yeah. So I hope I hope I answered your question, because yeah, as you can tell, I'm very, very passionate about owning your story. Owning your story
Absolutely.
and speaking on your story. Yes.
I love that, Leslie. Yes, I love that. I absolutely love that. Now, to wrap it up, I want to share a solution with our teachers and educators on owning their story. Okay. Um, what's one part of a teacher's story that we can use as a prompt for teachers to begin writing? You know, I want to provide an open ended statement that will make it easy for teachers to just start writing their story, not for the purpose of publication, but for the purpose of writing and owning their story, just becoming comfortable with their story. Let's create an open prompt that a teacher can read and then begin to add on to, if that makes sense to you. Let's say that, for instance, I give myself permission to share, and let that be X, Y, and Z.
To
Or
write.
I give myself permission
I give myself permission to write.
to,
I give
let's
myself permission to write without